I'm 74 years old and tonight, I locked my bedroom door for the first time in 20 years. Not because I'm afraid of strangers, but because I'm afraid of my own children. They don't know what I found hidden behind the cracked floorboard. And they don't know that this year, I'm not asking them for anything, because I already know the answer. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the silence. I'm speaking to you now because my house is quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears until you hear your own heart beating, slow and tired, like it's counting something it's afraid to finish. Tonight, the rain won't stop tapping on the windows. Each drop feels like a question nobody wants to answer. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, wrapped in an old cardigan that still smells like lavender and dust. My hands are trembling, not from cold but from memory. The candle beside me flickers, throwing shadows across the wall. They move like whispers, like secrets that don't want to stay buried. This year, I'm not asking my children for anything. Not for a visit. Not for a phone call. Not even for love. 'Cause I already asked once. And something inside this house answered back. Earlier today, I stood in the hallway holding an old family photo. The frame was cracked, the glass cloudy. All three of my children were smiling in it, wide, bright smiles, the kind that don't exist anymore. I traced their faces with my finger and whispered their names, one by one. No one answered. The floor beneath my feet creaked, slow, deliberate. Not the normal kind. This sound came from the corner near the locked storage room. The one they told me never to open. I hadn't heard that sound in years. That room has always been wrong. Cold even in summer. The door swells when it rains, as if the house itself is trying to keep it shut. My children used to fight over who had to walk past it at night. Today, I heard footsteps inside. I told myself it was my imagination. At my age, people expect you to forget things. They smile politely when you say something doesn't feel right. They say, "You're just tired, Mom." But I wasn't tired. I knelt down slowly, my knees protesting, and noticed something new. A thin crack in the wooden floor. Fresh. As if something underneath had pushed up. My heart began to pound. I should have walked away. I know that now. Instead, I lifted the loose plank. Underneath was a small cloth-wrapped bundle, and a key. Not just any key. A key I hadn't seen since the night my husband died. The candle beside me flickers harder as I tell you this. The flame bends like it's listening. I sat there on the floor for a long time, holding that key, remembering the way my children stood behind me at the funeral. All of them silent. All of them watching me instead of the coffin. That was the first time I felt it, that distance. Like they were already somewhere else waiting. The bundle was heavier than it looked. When I unwrapped it, my breath caught in my throat. A diary. My handwriting. But I don't remember writing what's inside. The first page was dated 15 years ago. The ink faded, but the words were sharp. If you are reading this, it means I finally understood why my children stopped asking me for anything. I dropped the diary. The sound echoed through the hallway, louder than it should have been. Somewhere in the house something shifted. A soft thud. Then another. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. I whispered, "Hello." My voice came out broken like glass rubbed together. No answer. I gathered the diary and key and locked myself in my bedroom. I pushed the dresser against the door, my breath shallow, my heart racing like a scared child. And that's when I realized something terrible. This year I wasn't the one who stopped asking. They stopped answering. Engaging question plus cite mid-chapter. Tell me something, dear. Have you ever felt like the people you raised slowly turned into strangers living in the same house? If this story is touching something inside you, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps this old voice reach others who are listening in the dark. I opened the diary with shaking hands. Each page felt heavier than the last. Names, dates, conversations I don't remember having, but I recognized the fear in the handwriting. My fear. One line was underlined again and again. Do not ask them for anything. Asking is how it begins. Outside my door, the house sighed. Wood contracting. Pipes clicking. Or maybe breathing. The candle went out. In the darkness I heard it clearly. A whisper. Right outside my door. Mom. Not one voice. 3. And in that moment, I understood something that broke my heart clean in half. This year, I'm not asking my children for anything. Because they're already asking me. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Because when 3 voices whispered "Mom" outside my bedroom door, I knew something had finally crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the diary to my chest like it could protect me. My heart was beating so loudly, I was afraid they could hear it through the wood. The darkness felt thick like something you could choke on. "Mom!" The whisper came again. Closer. I wanted to answer. Oh God, how badly I wanted to answer. You don't stop being a mother just because your children scare you. That instinct never dies. It crawls. It begs. It lies to you. But the diary was still open in my hands, and the last line I had read burned inside my head. Do not respond when they call you together. Together. My children never spoke in unison. Even as babies they cried differently, fought differently, loved differently. I swallowed hard and stayed silent. The floorboards outside creaked. Slow footsteps moved from one side of the door to the other, like they were pacing, waiting, testing. I squeezed my eyes shut, and suddenly I wasn't 74 anymore. I was 32, standing in this same hallway, holding my youngest after a nightmare. I could still remember the way her small fingers clutched my nightgown, how she whispered, "Don't let them take me, Mommy." I never asked who they were. Mothers make that mistake sometimes. We think love alone can protect our children from shadows. I was wrong. A soft knock tapped against the door. Not angry. Not forceful. Polite. "Mom," my eldest son said gently. Too gently. "We just want to talk." The word talk scraped against my nerves. That's how it always started. I forced myself to look back down at the diary. My own handwriting trembled on the page, as if the woman who wrote it already knew she would be afraid again. Page 14. The first time they asked me to choose, I didn't realize it was a test. My breath caught. Choose what? I turned the page. They said it was for my own good. They said families have secrets, and secrets need silence. Outside, the whispering stopped. The silence was worse. It stretched so long my ears began to ring. Then from somewhere deeper in the house, from behind the locked storage room, came a low sound. A dragging noise. Like something heavy being moved across the floor. I remembered that room. No windows. No light. Just shelves, boxes, and a smell that never quite went away. My husband had always locked it. The night he died, the key disappeared. Until today. My fingers tightened around the cold metal key lying beside the diary. I didn't want to know what it fit. I already did. The doorknob outside my bedroom rattled once. Then stopped. I whispered to you now because I couldn't whisper to them. "Please," I murmured, my voice cracking. "Whatever you are. Remember I loved you first." The hallway answered with footsteps retreating. I waited. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. I don't know. Time behaves strangely when fear is in the room with you. Finally, I slid down onto the floor and turned another page. Page 27. I started noticing the changes after the accident. The accident. My chest tightened. 15 years ago, there was a night I told everyone never to speak of again. A rainy night. A call from the police. A mistake that was supposed to stay buried. I remembered standing in the kitchen, my children soaked from the storm, eyes too calm for what they had just been through. They never cried. They never asked if I was okay. They just watched me. The same way they watched at their father's funeral. Another sound pulled me back to the present. A whisper. Not outside my door this time, but inside the room. Behind me. I spun around, my breath leaving my body in a sob. Nothing. Just my shadow stretched long across the wall by the moonlight sneaking through the curtains. The shadow looked wrong. Too tall. Too many edges. I laughed softly then, the way people do when they're close to breaking. "You're tired," I told myself. "You're just tired." But the diary didn't let me lie. Page 42, they learned how to use my love against me. Tears blurred my vision. Each page felt like a confession I never remembered making, written by a version of me who saw the truth too late. I heard a door open downstairs. Then another. Cabinets. Drawers. They were searching. For me. Or for the diary. Or for the key. I hugged my knees to my chest, rocking slightly, like I used to when my children were small. My voice shook as I spoke directly to you. "I wanted grandchildren," I whispered. I wanted holidays and laughter and noisy dinners. I wanted to grow old and be annoying and loved anyway. My throat closed. I didn't know love could become leverage. The footsteps came back. Heavier now. Angrier. They stopped right outside my door again. This time no whisper. Just breathing. 3 different rhythms. Waiting. I stared at the final line on the open page. If you are hearing them ask you for something this year, it means the house is hungry again. A sharp knock slammed against the door. The dresser shuddered. Mom, all 3 voices said together, no softness left. You promised. Promised what? My hand trembled as I reached the end of the chapter. And then I understood. This year, I'm not asking my children for anything, because they're here to collect. You promised. Those words didn't come with anger. They came with certainty, the kind that doesn't need to raise its voice. The dresser rattled again as something leaned against the door. Not pushing, just resting there, like it knew time was on its side. I pressed my palms against my ears, but their breathing still crawled into my head. I whispered to you because you were the only one listening. I don't remember what I promised, I said. But my hands do. They were shaking so hard I could hear the bones click. Slowly, carefully, I turned back to the diary. My fingers slid to the next page as if guided by something that had been waiting years for me to read it again. Page 58. Promises made out of fear don't disappear. They age. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I remembered that night now. Not clearly. Not all at once. But in pieces. Rain pounding the roof. Police lights bleeding red and blue across the walls. My children sitting on the couch dripping wet, eyes locked on the floor. And me standing between them and something much worse. They were supposed to be asleep that night. They weren't. They saw what happened in the road. They heard the sound. They felt the house respond. Because the house has always listened. Another knock hit the door, softer this time. Almost patient. Mom, my middle child said, her voice trembling in a way that sounded rehearsed. You said you'd take care of it. You said we wouldn't have to pay. Pay. My stomach dropped. I flipped the page. Page 61. The house doesn't want money. It wants what was spared. A memory cracked open. I remembered screaming into a towel so my children wouldn't hear. I remembered begging, not God, not the police, but the house itself. The walls. The floor. The darkness behind the locked room. I had offered something that night. Something desperate. Something I thought time would erase. I was trying to protect you. I whispered toward the door. I was trying to be your mother. The breathing outside stopped. Then very softly my eldest replied, you taught us how. The candle beside me flared back to life, though I hadn't touched it. The flame stretched tall, casting shadows that didn't match the shape of my body. One shadow stood where the storage room would be. I stood up slowly, my knees screaming in protest, and clutched the key. The diary fell open to a page marked with a deep crease. Page 73. The room must remain locked until the house asks again. A low hum vibrated through the floor. Not sound, feeling. Like the house was waking up. I heard the lock on the storage room downstairs turn. Click. My breath hitched. No, I whispered. I never gave you the key. From behind my door, 3 voices answered calmly. You gave us permission. The hum grew louder. The walls trembled, dust drifting down like ash. The smell from that room, damp earth and rust, filled the hallway, crawling under my door. I clutched my chest as pain bloomed there, sharp and sudden. I had forgotten something important. The house never takes without consent. Convinces. It waits. And it remembers everything you don't want to. I staggered toward the door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break my ribs. I leaned my forehead against the wood, tears streaking down my face. Please, I begged. You don't need this. You're my children. A pause. Then footsteps moved away. Not toward the stairs. Toward the storage room. I screamed then, not loud but raw, the kind of scream that rips through you without making a sound. I yanked the dresser aside with strength I didn't know I had and unlocked my bedroom door. The hallway was darker than it should have been. Longer. The walls seemed closer together. At the end of it, the storage room door stood open. Inside was candlelight. And something else. Movement. I crept forward, each step heavy with dread. The diary felt like it weighed 100 pounds in my arms. My voice shook as I spoke to you. I told myself that if I never opened that door again, the promise would rot away. The floor inside the room was different. Older. Stained. At the center sat a wooden chair. And behind it, carved into the wall, were names. Mine. My husband's. And spaces left blank. The humming stopped. 3 figures stepped into the candlelight. My children. But not the way a mother remembers them. They stood straighter. Still. Their eyes reflected the flame too perfectly. You said when the house was ready, my eldest said, you'd stop asking and start giving. The diary slipped from my fingers and fell open on the final marked page. Page 89. When they come together, it means the debt has matured. My knees buckled. This year, I'm not asking my children for anything, because the promise I made all those years ago was never about them. I couldn't scream. The sound stayed trapped in my chest, heavy and burning, as I stared at the names carved into the wall. Mine. My husband's. And those empty spaces waiting patiently beneath them, like open mouths. That's when I remembered my husband's voice. Not from the hospital. Not from the funeral. From the night he locked this room for the last time. If it ever asks again, he had whispered, his hands shaking as he turned the key, don't answer. And never let the children hear it speak. I failed him. The candle flames flickered wildly as my children stepped fully into the room. Their shadows stretched unnaturally long, twisting across the walls and floor like they belonged to something older than flesh. You told us the truth would keep us safe, my youngest said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were too still. You said secrets were stronger than fear. I shook my head, tears streaming freely now. I said that because I was afraid, I whispered. Because I thought I could lie to the dark and it would leave us alone. The house groaned softly. Not angry, not pleased, just aware. The diary lay open at my feet, pages fluttering as if moved by breath. I bent down and read, my voice trembling as I spoke the words aloud to you. Page 91. My husband offered himself so I wouldn't have to choose. The memory hit me like a wave. The accident wasn't supposed to involve him. That man on the road. The one who never made it home, the one my children saw too clearly. The house woke up that night because of the fear. Because of the guilt. Because something was owed. And my husband understood before I did. I remembered him standing between the children and the storage room door. His face pale, eyes hollow but resolved. They're young, he told me. They'll survive if they don't remember. I sobbed openly now. He locked himself inside. I whispered to you. He told me to take the kids upstairs. He told me to forget. The candlelight flickered, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw him standing in the corner of the room. Older. Thinner. Watching me with sadness, not anger. The house took him instead. That was the bargain. Silence for safety. One life for 3. You promised us you'd remember when it was time, my eldest said quietly. You promised we wouldn't have to carry it alone. I fell to my knees. I carried it every day, I cried. In my bones. In my sleep. In every quiet moment when the house felt too awake. The walls seemed to pulse now, slow and rhythmic like a heartbeat. The empty spaces beneath the carved names began to darken. Waiting. The diary's final pages were smeared. Ink uneven from tears. Page 97. The house is patient. It accepts substitutes. Until it doesn't. My chest tightened painfully. Substitutes. My husband had been one. And now the house was ready for another. The candle flames leaned toward me. The air grew cold enough to sting my skin. My children stepped back, forming a careful distance between themselves and the chair at the center of the room. That's not what I meant, I whispered, understanding crashing over me like ice water. I didn't mean for you to bring it back here. You didn't have to, my middle child replied softly. It remembers you. The chair scraped across the floor. Just an inch. Then another. I crawled backward, my hands slipping on the cold boards. I'm old, I sobbed. I don't have much left. Isn't that enough? The house answered with a whisper that didn't use words. A feeling. Hunger doesn't care about age. The diary slid toward me, stopping inches from my shaking hands. One last sentence was written at the bottom of the page, darker than the rest. Page 100. When the debt comes due, the mother must decide what remains of her love. I looked at my children, really looked at them. Alive. Breathing. Whole. Whatever the house had touched, it had never fully taken them. Because I stood between. Because my husband did. I stood slowly, every joint aching, my heart pounding with a terrible clarity. I won't let it have you, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Not now. Not ever. The shadows rippled angrily across the walls. The chair slid forward again. This time I didn't move away. This year, I whispered, turning to you with tears running down my face. I'm not asking my children for anything. I stepped toward the chair. Because mothers don't ask when it's time to give. Behind me, my children cried out my name. Not together this time, not in harmony, but separately. Human. Afraid. The house screamed. The scream didn't come from the walls. It came from inside me. The moment I touched the chair, the house went quiet, the wrong kind of quiet. The kind that feels like everything is holding its breath, waiting to see if you'll break first. The wood was cold beneath my fingers. Not dusty. Not old. Alive. My knees buckled as I lowered myself onto the chair, my bones aching like they were warning me. The candle flame snapped upright, steady and watchful. Behind me, my children cried out again. Mom, stop. Please. You don't have to do this. Their voices overlapped. Messy, imperfect, terrified. Human. I closed my eyes and whispered to you. That's how I knew I still had time. The house hated disorder. It hated fear that didn't belong to it. The diary slammed shut on the floor. The shadows recoiled, crawling back up the walls like burned paper. A pressure wrapped around my chest, tight and crushing, stealing my breath. My vision blurred, spots of light dancing before my eyes. I remembered another night like this. Not the accident. Later. Years later. The first time I forgot my husband's voice. I had sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at an empty chair, realizing with terror that grief could fade, and that forgetting was its own kind of betrayal. The house fed on that too. I'm not afraid of you, I said aloud, my voice shaking but loud enough to fill the room. You only exist because we were weak once. The chair vibrated beneath me. The carved names on the wall began to bleed darkness, the letters sinking deeper into the wood. One of the empty spaces started to fill. Slowly. With my name. No, my eldest sobbed. He took a step forward, then stopped, as if an invisible line held him back. This isn't what we wanted. I turned my head and looked at them, really looked. They were crying. Tears streaked their faces, messy and uncontrolled. The reflections in their eyes were uneven now, flickering like the candlelight instead of mirroring it. You brought it back, I said softly, because you were tired of pretending it never happened. They nodded. We hear it when the house is quiet, my youngest whispered. We always have. Tells us things. It told us you'd know what to do. Of course it did. The house never lies. Just leaves out the ending. The pressure tightened, my heart pounding erratically now. My breath came in shallow gasps. I tasted copper. The diary slid across the floor again, opening on its own to a page I hadn't seen before. Blank. Except for one sentence slowly appearing, as if written by an invisible hand. Choose what remains. My vision darkened at the edges. I laughed weakly. You don't get to choose anymore, I whispered. I do. I reached into my cardigan pocket and felt the key. The real key. Not to the door. To the promise. My husband had hidden it there the night he locked the room, sewn it into the lining with shaking hands. I found it years later and convinced myself it meant nothing. I was wrong. With trembling fingers, I pressed the key into the arm of the chair. The wood split open with a sound like a scream swallowed halfway. The house shuddered violently, the walls cracking, dust raining down. The carved names began to splinter, letters breaking apart and falling to the floor. The pressure vanished. Air rushed back into my lungs so fast it burned. The shadows screamed, not in sound but in feeling, a wave of rage and hunger and loss crashing through the room. The candle flames went out all at once. Darkness swallowed us. In that darkness I felt something pass through me. Not taking. Letting go. I collapsed forward, coughing, my hands scraping the floor. My children rushed toward me, their hands warm, real, shaking as they held me. Mom, my middle child whispered. Mom, can you hear me? I opened my eyes. The storage room was just a room. Old shelves. Dust. Boxes. No chair. No carvings. No hum. Only silence. The house sighed, not awake, not hungry, just empty. I laughed softly through tears, pressing my forehead to the floor. It's done, I whispered to you. I broke the promise. The diary lay nearby, its pages blank now. No words. No warnings. My children helped me up, wrapping their arms around me like they hadn't done in years. Their bodies shook with sobs they had been holding back since childhood. We're sorry, my eldest cried. We didn't know how else to make it stop. I kissed his cheek, then the others, my hands trembling but gentle. I know, I said. That's why it worked. We left the storage room together. Behind us, the door closed on its own. This time it didn't lock. As I sit here now telling you this, the house is quiet again. But it's a different quiet. An honest one. This year, I'm not asking my children for anything. Because some silences are finally full. Silence doesn't end things. It reveals them. After we left the storage room, none of us spoke. My children walked beside me like strangers afraid to make the first move. The hallway lights flickered once, then steadied, as if the house itself was unsure what it was allowed to do now. I could feel something missing. Not gone missing. Like when you wake up after surgery and know something was taken before anyone tells you. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where homework was done, birthdays celebrated, arguments survived. The rain had stopped outside, leaving the windows streaked and dull. No one made tea. No one reached for comfort. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I don't hear it anymore, my youngest whispered, her voice barely there. Do you? I closed my eyes and listened. Nothing. No hum. No pressure. No whisper behind the walls. But there was something else. A hollow. The house is empty, I said softly. That doesn't mean it's healed. They looked at me then, really looked. And I saw something I hadn't seen since they were small. Fear of losing me. The kind that makes children behave, lie, obey. The diary lay on the table between us. Blank pages catching the light like snow. My middle child reached for it, then pulled her hand back. It won't write anymore, she said. No, I replied. It never needed to. It only reminded. My chest tightened suddenly, sharp and breath-stealing. I pressed my palm over my heart, the room tilting slightly. This was the price. Not death. Time. My eldest noticed first. He stood quickly, chair scraping back. Mom, he asked. Sit back. Please. I am sitting, I said, confused. But I wasn't sure how long I'd been there. Minutes slipped oddly now. Thoughts stretched, then snapped. I forgot the end of my own sentences. Faces blurred for a heartbeat before sharpening again. The house wasn't feeding anymore. But it had eaten well for decades. Something's wrong, my youngest cried. I reached for her hand, grounding myself in warmth. I think, I said slowly, choosing each word carefully, I paid in advance. The room filled with sobs. No, my eldest said. You already gave enough. I smiled weakly. That's what mothers think. I whispered to you. That giving stops when the danger passes. Doesn't. The days that followed felt thinner. Lighter but fragile. My children stayed. All of them. Sleeping in their old rooms, checking on me at night like I once checked on them. The house behaved like a normal house now. Pipes knocked. Floors creaked without meaning. But my memories began to loosen. Not the big ones. The small ones. Where I put my glasses. What day it was. The sound of my husband's laugh. That hurt the most. One evening, I stood in the living room staring at an old photo and couldn't remember when it was taken. I knew the people. I knew the love. But the moment was gone. I sat down hard, my breath catching. My middle child knelt in front of me, eyes shining with tears. It's taking you anyway, she whispered. No, I said gently. It's giving me back. She shook her head, confused. For years, I explained, the house held parts of me hostage. Fear does that. So does guilt. I carried more than one lifetime of both. I reached up and cupped her cheek. Now that weight is lifting. But I'm old. When you've carried something too long, letting go looks like loss. That night I dreamed of my husband. Not trapped. Not watching. Just standing in the garden the way he used to. Hands dirty, smiling softly. You did good, he told me. I woke up crying. The diary was gone the next morning. Not stolen. Finished. We searched the house together, but I knew it wouldn't be found. Some stories erase themselves once they're heard. As I speak to you now, I feel it, the slipping. Gentle. Like sand through fingers. I forget words sometimes. I forget what I was saying mid-thought. But I remember what matters. Love. Choice. The sound of my children's real voices when they say my name now. Not together, not rehearsed. Just afraid to lose me. This year, I'm not asking my children for anything. Because what I needed most, they finally gave freely. Silence doesn't end things. It reveals them. After we left the storage room, none of us spoke. My children walked beside me like strangers afraid to make the first move. The hallway lights flickered once, then steadied, as if the house itself was unsure what it was allowed to do now. I could feel something missing. Not gone missing. Like when you wake up after surgery and know something was taken before anyone tells you. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table where homework was done, birthdays celebrated, arguments survived. The rain had stopped outside, leaving the windows streaked and dull. No one made tea. No one reached for comfort. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I don't hear it anymore, my youngest whispered, her voice barely there. Do you? I closed my eyes and listened. Nothing. No hum. No pressure. No whisper behind the walls. But there was something else. A hollow. The house is empty, I said softly. That doesn't mean it's healed. They looked at me then, really looked. And I saw something I hadn't seen since they were small. Fear of losing me. The kind that makes children behave, lie, obey. The diary lay on the table between us. Blank pages catching the light like snow. My middle child reached for it, then pulled her hand back. It won't write anymore, she said. No, I replied. It never needed to. It only reminded. My chest tightened suddenly, sharp and breath-stealing. I pressed my palm over my heart, the room tilting slightly. This was the price. Not death. Time. My eldest noticed first. He stood quickly, chair scraping back. Mom, he asked. Sit back. Please. I am sitting, I said, confused. But I wasn't sure how long I'd been there. Minutes slipped oddly now. Thoughts stretched, then snapped. I forgot the end of my own sentences. Faces blurred for a heartbeat before sharpening again. The house wasn't feeding anymore. But it had eaten well for decades. Something's wrong, my youngest cried. I reached for her hand, grounding myself in warmth. I think, I said slowly, choosing each word carefully, I paid in advance. The room filled with sobs. No, my eldest said. You already gave enough. I smiled weakly. That's what mothers think. I whispered to you. That giving stops when the danger passes. Doesn't. The days that followed felt thinner. Lighter but fragile. My children stayed. All of them. Sleeping in their old rooms, checking on me at night like I once checked on them. The house behaved like a normal house now. Pipes knocked. Floors creaked without meaning. But my memories began to loosen. Not the big ones. The small ones. Where I put my glasses. What day it was. The sound of my husband's laugh. That hurt the most. One evening, I stood in the living room staring at an old photo and couldn't remember when it was taken. I knew the people. I knew the love. But the moment was gone. I sat down hard, my breath catching. My middle child knelt in front of me, eyes shining with tears. It's taking you anyway, she whispered. No, I said gently. It's giving me back. She shook her head, confused. For years, I explained, the house held parts of me hostage. Fear does that. So does guilt. I carried more than one lifetime of both. I reached up and cupped her cheek. Now that weight is lifting. But I'm old. When you've carried something too long, letting go looks like loss. That night I dreamed of my husband. Not trapped. Not watching. Just standing in the garden the way he used to. Hands dirty, smiling softly. You did good, he told me. I woke up crying. The diary was gone the next morning. Not stolen. Finished. We searched the house together, but I knew it wouldn't be found. Some stories erase themselves once they're heard. As I speak to you now, I feel it, the slipping. Gentle. Like sand through fingers. I forget words sometimes. I forget what I was saying mid-thought. But I remember what matters. Love. Choice. The sound of my children's real voices when they say my name now, not together, not rehearsed, just afraid to lose me. This year, I'm not asking my children for anything, because what I needed most, they finally gave freely.